The problem with using Zencaster is that, since now that we're posting to YouTube, if we make a mistake, we have to start all the way over from scratch. Whereas before, for our regular
Yep.
listeners, I've been able to like just stitch together the audio, and no one's the wiser when say
Yep.
Skip forgets to turn on his headset.
Yes. Yes. Little things like that.
It's little things like that, but you know, it's entertainment for us because when I cut things out, it's like, oh wow, this is great. Everybody talks so smoothly and they never get off track. Like, no, we do. It gets edited out.
Yes. Yes.
And so we were about 3 minutes in, and Skip discovered that he forgot to turn on his headset.
Hmm.
So today we're talking about entertainment and kind of the evolution. And the reason we got here is because Skip was judging me harshly
Very harshly.
for listening to or preferring to listen to Poison on LP. And the reason we were listening to it on LP is because when I first started this company, I would listen to records that my father-in-law left me on a Technics 1200, I think it is, or 1300. And that's how I would listen to a record, and then I would flip it over and I would listen to the other side. And that's how I knew how to take breaks.
Oh,
And
okay.
I would do business strategy, and I was creating all of this framework that I wanted to run my clients through, and I would listen to these hundreds of records I had, and I have some fantastic ones in that collection. And a friend of mine gave me a copy of his. He had an extra Poison album, and it's this red record, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, that
And
doesn't seem
Skip's
right.
like, no, the only way to listen to that is on cassette. And the guy's thinking about the evolution of entertainment and what's preferable. Now,
Yeah.
all of you audiophiles out there know that the proper way is an LP, but evidently there's some things that need to be listened to on cassette.
It's just one of those things. I just, you can stream it now. I know it's digital, and yes, it sounds great, but I don't know. There's just some bands out there that it just feels like they need that, that tinny, little bit of scratchy noise that you get with cassette.
That risk of your tape just like scrambling up. And
Yes.
oh crap moment while you try to desperately eject it and save it.
It's a whole experience deal. It's not just listening, but
yeah. So, I mean, we talked about a bit like so we had our 5-year anniversary as a company this week, and that's a big milestone. So my wife got me a portable record player to listen to at work, and the two albums I picked out were Poison and Rush 2112, and those are just some of my more recent acquisitions.
And the Rush fits to LP. That's okay. I didn't give him any grief on the Rush.
That's like the same age though. Like
Rush it's not.
And Poison.
No.
Oh, they're roughly the same.
No.
Poison's older than you think.
Yeah, but
I think you're just getting to the age where
it's all a matter of perspective.
I think it all blends together for you a little too much. At your age. So, we start talking about like different forms of entertainment and like just like how things have evolved. Today, we have VR headsets. I was playing golf just last night with my pastors, and we were playing mini golf in VR from the comfort of our houses. We just got to chatting, making jokes, and just acting like a bunch of guys out on a golf trip. But it was this. If you ever play Walkabout Mini Golf in your VR, it's a fantastic game. They poured a lot of work into that, and it's a lot of fun. And you can invite friends into it, and you can have a nice 18-hole golf without ever leaving your living room. Mini golf, not the full swing, walking and geese attacking you thing, but that is entertainment today. But also, I have been on this old school Nintendo kick for the past like year or two, where I just miss that side-scrolling platformer. So for those of you who are not gamers out there, in technology, a lot of technology people are gamers, and a lot of them are inspired to get into the field by video games and just the love of working with electronics. And so platformers are referred to as those old games where you jump from platform to platform, like Super Mario Brothers or Metroid or any of these old games that everybody knows, and you jump from platforms because you can only jump from the sides. It's a side scroll. And in the entertainment industry, they call it a platformer, and you can go back and play it, or today there's been a big resurgence of platformers for all the new um, gaming systems.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this retro feel. So one of the biggest games that came out last year or the year before, I think it was Metroid, came out with a new game. Instead of being all 3D and fancy and trying to appeal to that first person shooter crowd, they did a side scroll platformer
Okay.
back like 30 years before this game
Rolling it
came
back.
out. This is what it looked like. And they went back to it. And it was one of the best games of the year. And like, wait a minute, no VR, no fancy, high def graphics. It was just a great game. And so it's just interesting to me, like how entertainment evolves and what we find entertaining. So I've got all this technology to me. I've got 7.1 surround system, yet I love listening to records on a crappy old set of speakers in my
Yep.
office that I built by myself.
Yep. Well, and so I am not nearly as much of the gamer as you. Enjoyed a lot of video games when I was younger, and I just always seemed to get distracted by life and couldn't devote the time I wanted to.
Video games are life, man.
Yeah, there we go. See, and but so today, I spend all my day, focusing on this business and technology alignment, and how do we help that happen? What are we looking for? Uncovering drivers and goals. What's going to be the things that make it happen. And it's interesting that sometimes to take a step back and see this push from technology. So, we've got this term that we use all the time at Managed Service Platform and the Humanize I.t Framework, is this top-down approach, right? From business to technology. But what's really interesting to me is if I, on a Friday afternoon, we step back and take a look at all this, what's pushing up from the bottom up as far as pushing technology is entertainment. So much of what happens and well, let's take cryptocurrency today. Cryptocurrency is a huge, financial investment and avenue that people are going down. But at its core, the actual things that make cryptocurrency happen are graphics cards. And that was obviously there was a tangent and a new driver there, but somewhere along the way, graphics cards had begun to develop so much and get so powerful to render these high-end graphics, and then someone came along and said, "Ooh, wow, we could mine Bitcoin with those things. Write a little code, they do this great." But ultimately, Bitcoin mining is built on graphics cards. Now, would Bitcoin mining have eventually developed that itself? Probably so, right? I mean, where there's a will or where there's a dollar, there's a way. And so that would have happened, but we got there a little sooner probably because of the push and the drive from the entertainment industry. And I think that affects so much of what goes on. You talked about your VR mini golf and the metaverse and the all that's going on there with Facebook and what Google and Microsoft are all trying to do in that space. It's centered a lot from the entertainment industry, but we look forward 10 or 20 years, what's that going to mean for the business industry? And I think it's pretty cool. And that's why I tend to embrace the entertainment drive that technology brings. I know there's a lot of people that like, oh, this is too much games. We need to get serious. We need to, do real world stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, man. There's a lot of value in letting that game industry kind of thrive and press some boundaries.
Well, we've always been driven, and I mentioned this in podcasts in the past. We've always been driven as a society by entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at what the things that really accelerate technology growth, it's the entertainment industry, hands down. So, the World Wide Web. I remember the first websites I really saw on www were car sites. People love their cars. They were able to put their inventory online. Those are some of the first things that I saw. I thought that was so cool. You could look at your car online, or you could look and see what was at the dealer at any given time before you walked over there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really cool. But then what really started driving the online experience was the video games. And of course, cats and pornography are always out there at the top.
Yeah.
But you know, whether you like cat videos or any of that stuff is beside the point. What you see is the consumerism of this stuff, and
Yes.
when the demand goes up, the money is there. When the
Yep.
money is there, then innovation happens. So DARPA originally created the internet for communications, but then look what we did with it. We filled it with cats. We filled it with video games. So
Yep.
this idea of the early 2000s where you could play video games with your friends remotely started taking off. Like I remember the IPX protocol, like
Oh yeah.
SPX, and
Yeah.
then creating
Absolutely. Yep.
VLANs and or virtual LANs, and you had all these tools that really got put out there. And some of those tools got turned into chat protocols and communication styles
Mm-hmm.
that got used in business. They're like, hey, we're using this here. Why aren't we using it for business? And you see a lot of that happening today with things like Slack or what's the big chat in Discord.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, these
Discord.
things
Yep.
are used in business all the time now, but they all started with video games.
Yep.
And that really pushes what we do. Like, how did we get really great 3D rendering animations? Well, we got that out of the late 90s when Steve Jobs took when he split off of Macintosh and went and formed his Next OS group and started working with a group called Pixar to do video
Mm-hmm.
rendering. And he
Yep.
created that group created some really innovative things and changed the way that digital animation was done in such a way that we very rarely see traditional animation anymore.
Yep.
And so we see this push by the entertainment. Now, what we've done with that digital animation is that you go online, you see all these advertising videos and this AI building commercials on the fly, and it gets moved into business once it streamlines. So even at Virtual C here, when we're looking at how do we get people to learn our platform and evolve, it's still game theory. You start off with an introductory level, and once people master that level, they move up to the next level where they can now do more and
Mm-hmm.
more and more. And
Yep.
that still is game theory. And that
Yep.
helps people have a better user experience. And that's all part of entertainment. People want to be
Yep.
entertained, and you can use that to run a better business.
Yep. And it can really transform businesses. I mean, so I think before we started the recording, we talked a little bit about how we listen to music and that evolution. I never got into LPs. That was just always we had a record
I
player,
grew
but
up on LPs, so
that just wasn't part of us. So me, the cassette, was the start of my music journey, and I didn't spend much time in the CD era. I pretty much jumped straight from cassettes to digital media, and back in the '90s, there was a lot of options there, and but it really shook up the recording and the music industry. And so those companies that were just massive in the '90s that had so much control over not only the people producing that music, but the consumers that were receiving that. These giant media companies, and you look at those guys today, and a lot of them are gone. Many of them have had to reinvent themselves. None of them are in the exact position they were, and that's going to be true for just about any business. But that definitely wasn't a subtle change. That was a drastic shift. When Apple came out with the iTunes and being able to stream songs,
thousand
one
songs
by
in your
one,
pocket.
yes, and or buy a subscription and get all the songs that you want. That really broke the ice, and that whole industry had a drastic shift. And so that is probably just a bigger example of some of the smaller things and maybe a little bit more subtle things that happen in other areas of our business. And I guess as professionals, and I see things like that, and it leads me to be a little bit more cautious about some things, and just don't judge too quickly, and be prepared, because I think there's always going to be a technology shift around the corner. It may be something small and not life altering in any way, but being able to recognize when these shifts are coming, and probably not hold on to them. If you decided, if I decided that cassettes was the only way to do it, music didn't sound the way it's supposed to on anything other than a cassette tape, well, I would be in a real bind today. Because it's hard to find a cassette player, and even the tapes themselves are becoming a little bit more challenging to find, and there's just too much work for that. And so if I were to stick to this and not realize the evolution of things, then it would put me in a bad spot. So as we look at all the other things that we do, we have to kind of keep in mind that life is changing, and we can't hold on to things just because of nostalgia or something.
Yeah, but you can also take and look at the entertainment industry and see what they're doing today. Nah, I'm not talking like your mainstream entertainment. I'm not talking
Yeah.
about your EA and the kind of cookie cutter entertainment that where it's very process driven. I'm talking about the innovative, cutting edge entertainment. Look at the Oculus games; those are still pretty niche. Look at the ways that we're pushing the envelope on YouTube. So eventually things move from entertainment in this like, oh, this new thing, this new discovery, like, oh, this is really cool. Like Wordle, for instance, was a huge craze earlier
Yeah.
this year.
Right.
And how is that feeding people's personas? And how's it feeding their lives? And watch what the little entertainments are doing and how they explode quickly, and how will that shift business. So if you look at me and you're watching this on YouTube, you see my background. It's a live background. These are videos I've taken from vacations I've been on, and it kind of like it adds a little flavor of who I am to any session. But I learned to do this because of streamers who would stream their mobile apps and
Yep.
talk about things, and then they well documented how to do live backgrounds and do OBS and live streaming, and I use that to create a better business environment. That was a niche area. So
Yep.
watch that niche entertainment. What are people entertained by, and how is it moving? Oculus was a small company, and they got bought up by Facebook, and they're still kind of a niche market. They're not really mainstream. A lot of
Yep.
people have Oculuses, but it's not something that's entered into the average person's vocabulary.
Right.
It's still very much this bubble over to the side. But I think they're making enough waves. I think we're going to see some cool stuff come out in the next 10 years around VR and business workplaces.
Yep.
And so you've got to keep on top of this. You got to keep on top of where is the entertainment and what envelope is it pushing.
Right. And that niche sort of deal. So I'll go ahead and put this out there. I'm not really sure where this is going to go or what's going to happen there, but I am fascinated by these fan film creators.
Oh yeah.
So some Star Wars or Star Trek, any sci-fi genre is always full of them. And you go out there and you can search them up on YouTube, and there'll be these little 2 or 3 minute, maybe a 5 minute little fan film. But then you'll find one that someone has gone all out. They've got maybe 15 or 30 minutes worth of a story there that they're telling. And I know just enough about that to know that 15 minutes of on-screen time is just days and days worth of work, weeks, months, possibly, depending on what you want to put into it. And these people are doing it for free, right? I mean, they're not, authorized.
Labor of love.
Yeah, they're not authorized by Disney to create this Star Wars little 10-minute mini film. They're doing it just to put out there. It's totally free, and some of this stuff is amazingly high content, high quality content. And I don't know where that kind of, I see that as a growing industry. Where is that going to mature? What's going to happen with those people? Is it just them as a hobby? Is it like wood turning or something? Is it just something they're going to do because it brings them joy? Is there going to be something that evolves out of that? Because there's a tremendous amount of skill that needs to go into those. Obviously, a lot of technology and their collaborative efforts many times. I mean, I don't think any of them are just one person's creation. You've got obviously someone driving it, like the director, but they're bringing other people on board. So I don't know. There's a lot going on there that has no dollar sign attached to it right now. But I don't know. Part of me just feels like that much effort, that much
Well,
technology, that much content is going to drive a dollar sign somewhere. So what's that going to look like?
look at the big entertainment right now: YouTube, live streamers, TikTok.
Mhm.
These little average Joes, back in 10 years ago, you had these kids just making YouTube channels about dumb stuff.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
whatever they could think of off the top of their head. Really low production value, but they were having fun with it and people got addicted to watching it. And
Mhm.
now, you can't log on to Facebook without seeing a reel or a somebody doing like a little 10-second video that gets from Instagram gets put onto your feed, and it's everybody. Everybody's doing it now, and it's a huge industry. I mean, there's a lot of money to be made off of this, and I'm wondering how long it's going to be before businesses start pushing out their own reels and start pushing out their own little
Mhm.
20-second videos
Yeah.
to kind of, and that's when it'll start becoming boring to me. But
Yeah.
it'll whenever something hits mainstream, whenever something hits that cookie cutter feel, like here's the formula for doing this correctly,
Yep.
that's when things get, I'm like, ugh. It's kind of like music. Music was great in the 70s and the 80s because it wasn't formulaic yet. But then
Mhm.
once the money followed the entertainment, we
Yes.
knew
Yeah.
that if you had a group of 4 to 5 guys who were
Yep.
attractive and they could get on the stage and they could dance, that they would make billions of dollars.
Yep.
So we
Yep.
started looking for these groups and started putting them together. We knew that
Mhm.
if you had this sound with a electric guitar, a drum, a lead guitar, a tenor vocalist, you could make lots of money. So you can hear these people who just don't push the envelope on sound, but they're making tons of money because they fit the formula. That's
Yep.
when you start seeing it's no longer an entry level. You have to fit the formula. But when it comes to like YouTube and this independent artists, as Skip was talking about, that's where we're seeing the cool stuff. You might see some
Yeah.
truly horrible things. You also,
Yeah.
every once in a while, you'll roll across this person who has a really unique sound or a
Right.
uniquely funny idea, or hey, I
Mhm.
never thought about that fan fiction before, and that's something I have. And that's really hard for a business to do because everybody wants to write a book and sell a book. They all want to sell a formula because formulas
Mhm.
sell really well in the entertainment industry. If you follow this pattern in entertainment, people will watch you. And if
Right.
you watch entertainment long enough, you start figuring out what the formula is. And you're like, oh, now I can predict what's going on. And then it's like, ugh,
Mhm.
it's just not as entertaining
It's
anymore.
not as entertaining anymore. Yep.
And like, I tell my kids, like the other night we were watching Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Yeah, I love that. I love Sonic. And my son goes, have you seen this before? I'm like, no, it's just formulaic, but I'm very
Yes.
entertained by it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. There's a
and, uh,
value in it, but it is not necessarily creative.
and that's just entertainment though. Like,
Yep.
and to me, I'm entertained by unique things. I like original things. I don't like formulaic. I'm a middle child. But the formula is where it starts hitting business. When people can count on it, knowing that this is proven strategy,
Mhm.
they'll start incorporating it into business, such as now I'm using OBS for live streaming. Would I have used it early on when it was it was really hard to use and hard to
Yeah.
put together? Probably not, because I need something reliable for business. But for the entertainment industry, they'll try something crazy. They'll strap a GoPro to their head, not knowing if it's going to record on the way down. They're going to try something
Yeah.
fun, and when it actually works out, then it becomes this big sensation because you showed somebody something new.
Yeah.
And just whether in entertainment, we love new things, we love new experiences, and it hits that formula, and then it becomes a business strategy. It becomes something to incorporate into
Mhm.
your corporation. So, watch watch the independent artists, watch these young people, and watch these older people who are just getting into a genre, and see what they're doing. See that original content. See, hey, how does this fit into my business? Is this something that's going to help me be better? Like,
Yep.
just like I am with my live streaming, it looks cool. And people often ask me, how are you doing that? This is because I paid attention. I looked at what people really liked about live streaming. And I thought, what they really like is that personal feel, that nice touch. And so the entertainment industry just drives so much of what we do.
It
If you
does.
look at your personal business, whether it's your MSP or your client's company for a dog kennel, like how does entertainment affect them? And is there a way for you to align entertainment and what's being doing in that industry into helping them become a better business?
Yep.
And that's kind of where I'm going with this podcast, is that entertainment might seem like it has nothing to do with the business strategy of running a dog kennel. But in the end of the day, when you can live stream somebody's dog and get all this data and this information and this fun,
Yep.
so that the person can see their dog from their work or from home, you have now separated yourself out and you have tapped into the entertainment industry's ideas to make your business better.
Yep.
And there's so much to be had there. So look at the entertainment industry, see what they're doing, whether it's video games, live streaming, the latest push on music. You probably can gain some ideas on how to be a front runner in your industry, but you gotta look.
Yep. There you go.
With that, I am excited for our new series. I'm back from vacation, so now I've got to figure out what does the next quarter look like, because we're at the end of quarter 2, which means I've got to plan out next quarter's podcast. So look forward to what comes out next week, because right now I have no idea.
Awesome.
You guys all be entertained by Adam shooting from a hip next week. Thank you.
There we go.